Okay, good evening, everybody. Today, I'm going to discuss the element of whether or not Judaism is monotheistic or polytheistic, and today I'm going to defend the whole mahalach of the ones that might be claiming that Judaism is polytheistic and not monotheistic. It is clear that when we are raised in school, in Cheder, we are always told that there's only one God, and that all the other gods, they are called getchkeler, they are rubbish, they are part of the imagination of the people, and they are the stupidity of human beings, but there's only one God in heaven. And this is how we've been raised, and it makes sense because children, they cannot understand differently. And this is also the way that I would recommend to still continue raising. But when children become older and they starting to hear about all kinds of other things that are in heavens, like we're talking about Malochim, angels, we're talking about dark forces, Kishuv, the Soten, we're speaking about Satanist beliefs, we're speaking about the Sitra Achre. When we speak about Mazikim, Shadim, Lilies, we already gave a whole shir about Lilies and about the Shadim. And so we see that there are other forces up there in heaven. So it's not only Hashem that is up there in heaven, but there are also other forces that are in heaven. And the question is, what does it mean? I always believed that there was one God, and now you're telling me there are also Malochim and dark forces that have koiches. And so for this, it's not such a problem. Mainly, we tend to, because we are so much believing, and we have been trained as a child that there is only one God in heaven, that therefore we do not have a strong problem with the fact that there are multiple Malochim and forces also there in heaven that can do things even against the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Can I ask two people to please mute themselves? I see Tzvi and Sam Glückmann. If you can mute themselves, thank you. Tzvika as well, thank you. So basically the belief that there is only one God, together with the belief and the knowledge that there are also other forces, are not really very strongly contradicting. Because we are so much believing that there's only one God, we are kind of saying that, so yeah, there are also other forces, and we are managing to combine both in our minds. We are doing what we call the Litvische Chiluk, the Shnei Dinim. You have God and you have gods, but it's not really gods, it's Malochim, there are Sorim, there are forces, and we managed to consolidate, to kind of align those both views together, mainly because we do believe very strongly, we know already, and we've been trained as a child that there's only one God. And so what disturbs is more the kasha, if in a kasha startmanish, plus also that the other monotheistic religions, like Christianity and Islam, they also have the same issues. They also have, they believe in Malochim, they believe in the Sotan, in the dark forces that have powers, etc. And so basically there is also kind of, we are not alone, nobody's attacking us because they've been attacking themselves as well. So we all three come to a consensus that this is not a contradiction. That's not kind of contradicting our belief that it is monotheistic. However, when we start growing up and we become a little bit older, and then we start seeing all kinds of different Rishonim, like the Ramban, Rabbeinu Bechai, that we will see. And there's also all kinds of Rishonis in the Torah and in our davening that are actually raising a little bit of questions. One of the questions that I had always is, when we say Ein Kelokeinu is, as the Zayda of my wife and for my children, Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, he touched it up in his song, Ein Kelokeinu es nicht do kein Gott wie unser Gott. There's no God like our God, which is, for me, always was a difficult statement, because it means that there is another God, but nobody is as our God. So nobody is in the same level as our God, but there is another God. But nobody is, it doesn't say that there is no other God. It says that Ein Kelokeinu, there is no other God like our God. And so therefore you do see a little bit of these elements that there are the gods, but not that our God is on top of all the other gods. And this is also what we are explaining, and we will see that is that Elokehu Elokim, Hashem is the God of the gods. So there is such a concept of gods, which are Elohim and Elohim, if you want. And I would like to elaborate this a little bit further and bring you a little bit more concrete examples, and a very concrete examples at the end from the Mekubal, that from the Mekubolim, how they explain it, from the Share Eure. But in beginning, maybe let me start off with the first question, is that we do not find in the whole Torah, in the whole Tanakh, really psukim that are saying that there are no other gods. In the Torah, there is always a mentioning of gods from Elohei Oamim, Elohei Nechor, Elohei Mitzrayim. You have all kind of other gods, Elohim Acherim. So in the Torah, there is a lot of time mentioned continuously that there are other gods, but just you are not allowed to have an avoided to them. Lo yeh Elohim Acherim al ponai. So the Elohim Acherim should not be al ponai, but there are kinds of a concept of Elohim Acherim. That concept that there is other gods is already the Ramban in this week's Parsha already speaks about that, and he says that there are by the other people, the other nations, you have the 70 nations, and each nation has a sar, and there he says they are also called Elohim. They are also called gods, and they kind of have also kind of powers, but this he doesn't say explicitly. But what he does say seemingly is that the goyim, and that's where there is a bit of a difficulty, the goyim are kind of allowed to serve them. So there is, because these are the gods that are geographically distributed, so each of the 70 people, nations, they have their own god, their own sar, as he calls them, and then he says that their names is Elohim. They are called Elohim, and Leheo Amim, and the Elohim Acherim. These are the gods of the nation. And the only issue that we have is, since we live in Eretz Yisrael, our God does not tolerate that we should serve gods from other nations, from other geographic nations. Because why would we serve another God instead of the God that is from the land of Israel? So that is a little bit what the Ramban wants to explain in the element of how to explain Lo yeh Elohim Acherim al ponai. And he also, a very interesting Ramban that I recommend you to look is in Achemois, where it says Lo Saki Horetz Esrem. They also explains that only in Eretz Yisrael, because the Hashem, he is the God of Eretz Yisrael. So, and therefore he requires you to not to do Avodah Zorah, and also not to do all the Gilui Aroyos, because in Eretz Yisrael itself, the land does not allow you to do it, because Hashem is the one that does not allow you to do this type of Averos. But in outside of Eretz Yisrael, he explains the Averos are lesser of a degree, and therefore you will not find in the Tanakh, you will not find that the Goyim were punished for Avodah Zorah in Chutz La'aretz. He says explicitly, you will always find the Goyim were punished of Avodah Zorah only when they are in Eretz Yisrael, like the Knaanim, and also like he brings down from the Kutim. The Kutim, they were only punished only after they came to Eretz Yisrael and they start serving other gods. But as long as they were in Chutz La'aretz, Hashem did not care about them, and he did not punish them, because the serving of other gods in Chutz La'aretz does not seem to be such a big Aveira, maybe not even an Aveira at all, or maybe it can even be kind of an Avodas Hashem, as we will see, an Avodas Hashem b'derech Zoro, b'derech what we call then Avodah Zoro. But that is a little bit what the Ramban wants to explain. I leave it to yourself to go and go into the Ramban. It's quite a long Ramban al Aseres HaDibros. The other Rishon, which goes a little bit more in detail, so he explains indeed, Kichol koich levu mazl, this is Rabbeinu Bechaya, sorry, Rabbeinu Chaim in Vayelech, on the Posuk Elohei Nechor Oretz. So he explains that Kichol koich levu mazl memune al al voidus gelulim sheloi, mazl keshes leporas, mazl gedi leplishtim, Mazel Besula or Maznaim Le'edoim. So he gives that all there are different kind of gods or mazolos that are distributed to the different nations. That's what the Pasuk says, Asher chilek Hashem Elokecho oisom lechol oamim tachas kol hashamayim ve'eschem lokach Hashem ulekach lo emotzinu, he says, b'chol ha'toira b'shum mokoim sheyashim hakosuf eso umois be'inyan avodah zorah. כי אם ישראל המיוחדים לחלקו יסעלה, וכן לא אם נוצינו עונש לאומס בעובדם כוכבים ומזולוס, אלו אם כן עובדו באורץ הקדושה. והראי מן הכותים. He also brings a ראי like the Ramban from the Kutim, that the only place where you're not allowed to do avodah zorah is in Eretz Yisrael. But in Chutz La'aretz, there is no really a strong issur. There is a issur, but there is more tolerance in avodah zorah in Chutz La'aretz. And because Zoisi Malas Eretz Yisrael, and he explains, אבל בשאר מקומים שקורו חוץ לאסור בשליח על ידי שליח. So he explains, he's marach a little bit here. It's interesting to see that there are also kind of gods that are in the other nations, geographic nations. If somebody can mute himself. Ariel, please. Thank you. Now you can say yes, but it does not mean Elohim, it does not mean really gods, because they don't have any power. Maybe it's just still kind of imaginary things or kind of agreements or just a naming. It's only a semantics where we are calling a sar, we are calling a malach, we are calling Elohim. And this is true that Ibn Ezra says that the maluchim are also called Elohim. But there is the Share Eure from Rabbi Yosef Zikatilia, I think his name was. He is marech a lot, and I will just read you a passage to show you that according to the Kabbalah, those gods have real powers. And I will read you, and he says, "Ve'ein lechol ha'amin divrei reikus shel kamo reikim." You should not believe the words of the empties, of a lot of empty people, she'oimrim she'ein koyach be'elohei amim. Don't believe those who say that the ones who say that those gods do not have powers and that they are not called Elohim. אבל יש לכל לדעת כי השם יסבורך נוסן כוח וממשלו ושבט ביד כל שר ושר מסורי אומויס. לא דון ולשפוט את עמוי ואת ארצו ונקרא שם אלוהים לפי שהוא שר ושופט את בני ארצוי. אבל סויב כל הסורים בכל האומה שלהם בוין להיות נידונים I don't know what it says, של יודקי וובקי, הנקרא אלוהיקים אמיתי, ואם חוטו יסוכו מוסוי של שר, אזי לויקה השר עלו מוסוי כמו שביארנו. ודע ואומן כי אין כוח באלוהים אחרים שהם אלוהי העמים, אלו אויסו הכוח שנוסן השם להם, לשפוט ולפרנס את ומוסום, אבל אינם יכולים לפרוס ולרפוא, להומיס ולהחיוס, חוץ מהכוח הידוע הנוסן להם לבני ארצם וממשלתם, וזה ככל אלוהי העמים אלילים, ופירש אליל הוא כמו בוסר עוד ומייז. Basically what he says is, clearly he says that the other gods from the other nations, they do have powers and they receive the powers from Hashem, but can have an hashpor. So basically you could ask them, other nations could ask them in order to receive what they want to receive, because they themselves have received from Hashem some kind of powers, mainly parnosa, which is and also in I think in the Ramban, the Rabbi Bachai explained also when it comes to war. So who is going to win and who is not, depending on how strongly your sar is, your Elohei Amim, and the time is. So what does it mean? It means, in other words, that there are for each nation geographic places, there are gods, and they have powers. They receive the power from the Elokei hu Elohim, and the only God, which is Elohei or Ivrim, Elokei or Ivrim, this is our God, and he is the God of the nation, of the place of Eretz Yisrael. And not only is he the God of Eretz Yisrael, he has a double identity. So he is both Elohei or Ivrim, Elohei Yisrael, but he is not only Elohei Yisrael, he is also Hashem Elokim. What does it mean, Hashem Elokim? He is the Mahava of the Elokim, of the Elohim, if you want. So basically what there is that there is a double identity in our God. In Hashem Elokim, there's a double identity. On one hand, he is the God of the place, he is Elohei Yisrael, but in the same time, he is not only geographically, but he is also the God that is actually the one that actually is the God of all the other gods. So we have the opportunity, that's why Hashem tells us that this is a great opportunity. You don't have to go to an intermediate God. You can come directly to me, because your God is actually the God of all the gods. And so therefore, this is the great opportunity. That's why Hashem says that I chose you, so that you are actually to have an extra protectia, you have a high level, because you can, if you pray to your God, it will be already directly the God of all the gods. And therefore you have to be extra careful in everything that you do. And Hashem demands of us extra restrictions and to live on an extra level. So this is basically clearly said, the Ramban, Rabbeinu Bechaye, and also the Rav, the Share Eure, where he explicitly say they don't believe that those who say that they don't have forces, they do have forces, and they can be done the other nations, but our God is not, and they are taking also, what is interesting, they are taking also the names, is also part of the names, the kinuim from Hashem. That's why they also called Elohim, but it's an Elohim which has also, they have received from, it's kind of a part of the name of Hashem as well. So it's not just obgetter, as they say, they have kind of a certain deity, and the deity that they received from the kind of Hashem gave a part of his names have been distributed to those 70 Sorim and Elehe or Amim. In order to explain now the different things that we have seen in this week's Parsha, I wanted to continue and to explain you how we see that from the Aseres HaDibros. First of all, it says, Lo yeh lecho Elohim acherim al ponai. So what does it mean? That it means that the Rebbeinu Shem says, don't have other gods al ponai. Al ponai means in front, my front, in my face. Because what does it mean al ponai? The opposite of al ponai means me achoirai, the other side of my face. And because on the other side of my face, there are multiple gods, there are Elohim acherim, and I don't want you have nothing to do with them. You should leave them alone, and you should not actually start dealing with them, because you have the opportunity to be directly with my face, which is straight away towards you. Because the other side of my face, these are what we call, what do we say in Aramaic, the other side is called the Sitra Achre. So in other words, the other side of Hashem is where the Sitra Achre is, and this is where all the dark forces are, but also the Sorim of the different nations, which are fighting the Jews because they want to have a direct relationship with Hashem. And so they are kind of fighting with each other and fighting with the Jewish nation, which is therefore it's called also the Sitra Achre. It's the other side. So you have the Pono Hashem. This is why we say Yisrael Hashem Pono Velecho, and then you have the other side, which is called the Sitra Achre. And this is the reason why it's called the Sitra Achre, because it's kind of the other side of Hashem. The fact that Hashem says, Onochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzesicho me'eretz Mitzrayim, why all the questions is, everybody asks the question, you should say asher boros hashamayim v'se'oretz, why should hotzesicho me'eretz Mitzrayim? So there is the answers, and the answers is very well explained how we explain it now. Because in theory, when Klal Yisrael came to Paroi, what did they say? They say Elohei Oivrim Sholach Oisi. So we said that I'm coming in the name of Elohei Oivrim. This is the God from the Ivrim. So it's a God from Eretz Canaan. So Paroi said, very nice. I've got a messenger from the God of Eretz Canaan. So very good. What does he want to tell? Let me go. Okay, I don't want you to go. But he's not afraid. Why? Because each God of a nation has a jurisdiction which is within his geographic place. They cannot go outside of their geographic place. They can only lead an army against, but they cannot do things in a place which is not theirs. This is within their own jurisdiction. So if Moshe Rabbeinu came and said, this is the Elohei of Ivrim that came, so Paro was not afraid. But what Hashem showed him is that, no, this Elohei of Ivrim, he is a bit different than all the other gods, because he actually can suddenly come into your country and he can take you, can do all kind of makkahs inside your jurisdiction, which is not his jurisdiction. And the God of Mitzrayim, the Elohei Mitzrayim, they cannot stop him. And this is something that was never seen before. So, so therefore, when the Rebbeinu Shem says, Asher hotzesicho me'eretz Mitzrayim, he wants to say, I am the God of the gods, because I can go, and I am actually the God of Eretz Canaan, Elei Yisrael, but I can go inside of Mitzrayim and make all the 10 makkahs, and the Elohei Mitzrayim cannot do me anything. So I am stronger than they are. And not why am I stronger than they are? Because I'm the one that gives them the koiches and I'm the one that is the creator of the world. So automatically, Asher Tzisicho Meretz Mitzrayim is the proof that it is Hashem is the God that is the creator, and he is the creator of the other gods as well. And because otherwise he will not be able to take us out and go inside and take us from inside outside. And so this is the idea behind that Hashem is, that's why we also say Hashem Echad, meaning that Hashem is the God of the all four corners of the Dalet is the four corners of the world. That is not only the God Elohei Yisrael, but he's on double role, and he has a role also of being the God, the creator, the Elohei or Elohim. The Josephus Flavius has written, and we already a few years ago, we already discussed that he has written that in his he has a whole list of mitzvahs that he describes. And one of the mitzvahs that we came across, and I mentioned it at the time, is that we are not allowed to curse the other gods. So all the other gods from the nations, we have to respect them. We are not allowed to actually curse them. So we said, where is there such a love? We don't know such a love at all. And so we mentioned that the only way that he could have explained it is the love which says in next week's parsha, Elohim lo yisekalel. So that you are not allowed to be mekalel Elohim. Now, Chazal learn Elohim lo yisekalel, meaning it's either a dayan, Elohim like from a dayan, or it means Chaz v'sholem the Birkas Hashem, it's Megadev. But the Rebbe of Josephus, which was not a Katlikanya, he was somebody who was a little bit learned, he knew the whole Torah, in any case knew all the mitzvahs for sure. And so he learned in school apparently, Elohim lo yisekalel, meaning that the gods of the other nations. Why? As we explained you with the Kabbalist from the Share Eure, by being mekalel the other gods, you actually also kind of mean mekalel the Elokei or Elokim, because he gave them part of his name are in them as well. And by being mekalel the other gods, you also kind of be mekalel the makor of the brocha, mekoira brocha. And so therefore we can understand that in his time there were some Rabbonim that believed that the words Elohim lo yisekalel are going on the other gods, that you should not be mekalel them. The other question that you might ask me then is the Bnei Noach allowed to serve their gods? We always say one of the Sheva mitzvahs Bnei Noach is that you're not allowed to make avodah zorah. And now I just tell you that basically the Bnei Noach are allowed to do avodah zorah. If they are serving their god that is the Belgian god, it's a Belgian person serves the Belgian god, that should be okay, because indeed he has something from it. So it doesn't have to go to the god of their gods, but they can go directly to their god. So why would it not be allowed? So there is a few ways to answer them. I'm still waiting for an answer. I asked this question to one of the Rabbonim that I'm in contact with, and he hasn't replied yet. But one of the answers that I can give is that there is a difference between avodah zorah and avodah selilim. So avodas kochovim and avodas elilim. Avodas elilim is when the goyim are doing rubbish, stupidities, when they are serving statues and things which are tangible. Those are avodas elilim. Those are for sure not allowed to, because they are rubbish and they have absolutely no power. The other way that this Rov has actually explained it is that once the idea of Ben Noach is that you have what we call a goy, and then you have a level of a Ben Noach. A goy is not necessarily directly a Ben Noach. A Ben Noach is a status that you have to become. And the bring rise from the Rambam that the Ben Noach is somebody that is mekabel on himself the Sheva mitzvahs Ben Noach because the Rebbeinu Shalom gave it to us al pi Moshe Rabbeinu. So basically you have a goy. A goy is maybe allowed to serve avodah zorah, at least to his god, that local national god, but he has to become a Ben Noach. If he wants to, he can become a Ben Noach by being mekabel the Rebbeinu Shalom, meaning the one, the creator, and from that moment on, he has become a Ben Noach, like it's a kind of a gerus that brings you from the level of a goy to a level of a Ben Noach, and only a Ben Noach who is serving their gods, their local gods, is not allowed to anymore, and he has to go directly to the Elokei or Elokim, or Hashem Elokim, as I explained you. So this is something that I'm still working on, and I'm hoping to receive more answers from that Rov, who has introduced this concept of being mekabel on yourself to become a ben noyach, similar to the idea of a ger toisho. I explicitly don't mention his names. A lot of things I'm not mentioning the names because it's very sensitive subject, and I don't want to say things which are maybe not exactly how the other person has meant it. So therefore, I'm here saying a lot of things that I have collected from left and right, and it's chas v'shalom, I'm not claiming him to be the only source of the Chiddush. Certain things I've said myself, but other things I'm taking from other people. But since it is very sensitive, I do not want to mention them directly. The question is, how does the today reflect the Elohei or Amim in today's world? Because we don't have, so what are the Elohei or Amim doing if nobody is serving them? I think that, and this is also, you can see that both in the Ramban and also in the Share Eure, that like you have a God up there, you also have a Melech down here. And the Melech is directly related to the God. So the Melech receives kind of a direct relationship and is the representative of the God of this nation. So what it means is that the country's head, a king or a president or prime minister, a government, even a flag and a nation, nationalistic feelings, they are all part of the serving and the believing in their gods. Because when there is the anthem, you can see that clearly when the anthem of Belgium, when the anthem of Belgium is sung, or when there is something important, people behave as if there is kind of a protocol, a religious behavior, like people bow down and they light a candle normally by, for example, the unknown soldiers. But there is this element of holiness that the Goyim have, even the biggest atheist. But when it comes to their nation, when it comes to their flag, they all are standing up and they have a special song, and they are very like mamish with a very highly emotional in believing in their government, in believing in their president, and trust or don't trust, fighting against him. But anyway, there is a very strong emotion about the government, about the head of the country. And this is basically kind of the avoidance azora, which I explained is the avoidance of their gods, that is reflected through the government that is going to be punished, as it says in the other Sforim, that the first is the God up there that is going to be punished, and then is going to be the king who is actually the responsible for the whole nation. The only problem is what happens with us in being in Golus. So when we are in Golus, how does it work? Because once we are in Golus, in other words, then we are not anymore under the Elohei Yisrael. So we are only under the Hashem Elohim. So how does it work with Avodah Zorah and etc.? And this we already said to you once, that the Ramban has a tremendous chiddush, and he brings it down from a medrash as well, is that indeed the mitzvahs that Klal Yisrael does in Chutz Loretz is not the same as the mitzvahs that Klal Yisrael does in Eretz Yisrael, because as Chazal say that why do we still have in Chutz Loretz mezuzos? Why would we put on tefillin in Chutz Loretz? So Chazal explain, as the Mama Chazal says, that we're only doing it because once will be the kibbutz golius, once we'll come back to Eretz Yisrael, we'll be used to it, just to keep us used, and that we should not forget how it's done. And therefore the Torah, if you want, asked us to continue doing the mezuzos also in Chutz Loretz. So there is this kind of a lower level indeed of serving Hashem in Chutz Loretz, because it is only a partial one side of the identity of Hashem that we are serving. And so therefore even Avodah Zorah is a bit of a question mark and I'm not going to go into that, but I can go on about that as well. How at the end in Sefer Devorim, Hashem punishes us, but we will be oivet eitz v'even. There also you see that there is kind of a punishment that we will have to serve eitz v'even, because it is, once we are in Chutz Loretz, it's the only thing that we can basically still kind of serve. But that's already quite far, and it requires a lot more of analytics about that. To finish off this shir, so we've said that there is in the Torah very little proof that we are monotheistic. There is only one posuk, which is Hashem Echad, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. However, when you look in Rashi, you will see that does not mean that Hashem is by himself. It just means that Hashem, our God, but who is not the God of the other people. So in other words, it is in contrary, he says that our God is not the God of the other people. And so therefore, it's actually, it depends how you read in Rashi, I agree. Some will read it differently. This is the more traditional way, how you can read it. But Hashem Echad, it doesn't say Hashem Yochid, but it says Hashem Echad. And we know already, the Mukubolim explain what does it mean Hashem Echad, that the oneness, it reflects the oneness of Hashem, that the 10 spheres are not 10, but they are one, and that the 10 spheres with the Ein Sof is not two separate things, but they are one. And so therefore, this whole element of Hashem Echad is to be Miyachet Hashem, and not that Hashem is lonely, that he is by himself, and there is, because otherwise you would have said Hashem Yochid and not Hashem Echad. So this reflects more on the oneness of Hashem himself. But there are multiple gods, there could be multiple gods. The only one posuk, and I will finish with that, especially for those whose stomach now is already churning a little bit, because they might not be comfortable with what I just spoke today about. So there is a posuk, Ato reis lo das, Hashem hu Elokim, ein oid milvadoi. That posuk is, I just found, mamish this Shabbos, when I was preparing for this shir, this is another posuk, which seems to be a little bit more explicit, stating that the ein oid milvadoi. So there is nobody else besides him. So here you see a clear posuk that goes against l'choire, the other Rishonim which I just explained you, that there is ein oid milvadoi. And so therefore the idea of monotheism can be reflected upon this posuk specifically. I still have to be mevarer the sugya in order to how to explain them with the other Rishonim and the Mukubolim. But in any case, for those who want, at least I have a posuk for them that reflects the idea of a very clear monotheism. It is the posuk which ends up with the ein oid milvadoi. So summary, we started off saying that we all believed that it was monotheism, that there is nothing else in heavens, only one Hashem. Then we say, no, there are multiple forces, but we managed to consolidate both together, and explaining with all kind of lomdas and shnei dinim, we become very litfish when it comes to answering those two steers. But then when we go a little bit further, we start to see all kind of Rishonim that are actually saying that there are other gods, and they are called gods, they are called Elohim. And we even see Mukubolim that are saying that they have even forces, but the forces, of course, they receive from Hashem. But in any case, they have a choice, they have powers, they can decide. And so therefore, there is an avoidance that if you would make an avoider of them, it would not be considered as a strong avoider zora. And that requires a little bit more of work. But and therefore, we explained as well that lo yeh Elohim acherim al ponai, meaning al ponai, but me'achorai, which is the sitra acher, there are Elohim acherim. And sorry, please go on mute, please. Holmes' iPad. And then you have Asher Sicho. We explained the Asher Sicho is Hashem went all the way outside of his jurisdiction, went into Mitzrayim, make the world makkos, and took us out of Mitzrayim. And that is something which is unique, which cannot happen with all the different gods that are in all different countries. The only way that it can happen is if Hashem Elokim is Hashem Elokim. He is the Mahave, the Elohim that are in the whole world. So he is the God of the gods, which is why the Rebbeinu Shalom starts on Noich Hashem Asher Sicho Me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am the Yud-Kei Vov-Kei, which is the name of Hashem, of the Creator. And we explained also why Josephus said that Elohim lo yisekalel goes indeed on the other gods. That's how it was in his time. And that the Ben Noach is not allowed to serve Avodah Zorah because the Ben Noach can go out of this jurisdiction, the God of his jurisdiction, and serve directly Hashem. But this requires kind of a Kabbalah, as maybe as the Rambam might have meant. And that our avodah that we have is also that Avodah Zorah will speak in the next year, or maybe the second next year, about whether our Judaism today is kind of an Avodah Zorah, but it's an avodah zorah which is permitted, tolerated by Hashem. The whole besmedrish that we are doing, the whole, maybe even in the Hasidus where they give a very strong powers to a rebbe and etc. All these things we already discussed this last year, and I will repeat them today. Is kind of an avodah zorah, but that is permitted. It is a permitted avodah zorah, and based on the Kuzari, I will give a little bit of an explanation about that. And then the last part is the element of the ein oid milvadoi, is also, which for me is a clear proof, a clear sentence that you cannot read differently unless you want to. Now you have to make a doichak in order to do the other way around. Is Noelam ein oid milvado means that there is nobody else, only him. So basically, this is really kind of a statement that there is only one God. And unless this part goes over the God of the gods, so he goes on the higher level, and there he refers to there is only one of them, and he is the one, the Yud Kei Vov Kei, and he is the one that took us out from Mitzrayim, and he is the Elokei Jisroy, Elokei Ivrim. He is the one that is actually has a double identity, as I explained you, and his identity is both being the local God of the Jewish nation, but also the God of the gods is the one that created. And our opportunity is that we are talking to our God. We are talking actually to the God of the gods, and we can talk directly to him, and he can change nature. As we proved it, and he can do mofsim and nisim if required, and he has the power. And Metz Hashem is meaning that all the names that are spread across all the 70 nations at some point will become one name again. And there will be mevutel, the other gods will be mevutel, and kind of that's how he explained the Rav that Share Eure. That's how he explains basically the Hashem lemelech al kol oretz bayoim hahu yeh Hashem echod u'shmoi echod, meaning that the names that are spread across the 70 nations will all become actually one. They will disappear, and all the amim will start because they will come to Eretz Yisrael. They will actually start to be serving Hashem by actually plugging inside in the Jewish nation to try to get as much as possible of the shefa that the Jewish nation will distribute to the Jewish to the whole world. Any questions? Okay, so I will stop here. May we be zoichetake to the Gilui Ashchina, and to this word, this day should be take the Rebbeinu Shem should be Hashem Echod U'Shmoi Echod.